welcome to another knitting tutorial. This one will be a chunky sweater with balloon sleeves, and I will make it out of upcycled yarn from thrifted sweaters. This is one of the ponchos that I found in the thrift store, so I unraveled it for the yarn, and then there was another sweater, but I didn't get any footage before I took it to pieces. I'm sorry. We will start off with making a swatch to see what our gauge are, and I am casting on 140 stitches and using a needle size of 4mm for the ribbing. My cable is 80 centimeters long, and I'm doing a 1-to-1 ribbing every other knit and purl. I used 2 strands of reused yarn around the weight 50 grams per 195 meters. I knit until I have around 5 to 6 centimeters or 13 rows. Then I'll exchange for a bigger size needle, in this case a 7mm needle. I start knitting the body and I keep the same 1-to-1 rib pattern. You can choose to do a flat knit too. You knit until you have 23 centimeters from the bottom, or 43 rows in total. Then you'll find the 2 side points by dividing the cast on stitches in 2, which leaves 70 stitches in between each thread marker. You can also use a safety pin for this. When you come to a thread marker, you bind off 3 stitches before and 3 after the marker, 6 stitches in total. Then you start knitting the front and the back separate. Something I will mention here is that I didn't record when I did these steps. I only recorded when I bind off for the neckline, but you do the same thing, so I hope it isn't too confusing. If we're starting with the front, we start with rounding off the arm's eye, and this is the same in the back and the front piece, which means that you knit 2 together, do decreases at the beginning and end of each row for 3 rows. Then you continue knitting straight up, back and forth. When you reach 38 centimeters or 65 rows, you count your stitches and put a thread marker in the middle. You start row 66, and when you are 5 stitches before the marker, knit 2 together, a decrease. Then you bind off 6 stitches. You slip your active stitch on the right hand side needle over to the left needle and knit 2 together. Continue knitting the row as normal. Then you'll decrease by knitting 2 together at the start and the end of each row but only when starting or ending at the neckline. Do this for 4 rows. You should end up with around 21 stitches. And with the back it's more or less the same. For the back side we knit a little bit longer, so here we'll reach 40 centimeters or 69 rows. You count your stitches, put a thread marker in the middle, and you knit the neck hole the same way as you do for the front, but you do the German short rows right away after you're done the decreases. So this is where I'm at. I'm just using this other sweater as reference. So I knitted this part, here I took in for the armhole, continue up straight, and now I'm gonna do the shoulder. So I think I reduced 6 here, then I've knitted 4 rows and reduced 1 on each. That leaves me with 23 stitches here. And I think because the short rows you have to leave the 7 last stitches here, so I'm gonna knit back here, then I'm gonna knit all of them except 7, and then I'm gonna start the short rows, I think. Maybe I'll do like a few more rows, I don't know, like I think maybe 1 or 2 more rows, just to get up in height a little bit. I mean, this is a lot more stretchy, but also like, yeah, I don't want the neck hole to be way too small. Okay, I will try to show you German short rows to the best of my ability. So this is the neckline. I have bind off 6 here. Then I've done 4 rows, binding off 1 each. And then I will knit all the way. Then I turn it around, and now because I'm at the neckline and I want it to be slanted this way, or that's really bad, slanted this way, I'm gonna knit all of them until there's 7 left here, because now I'm at 21 stitches. Okay, here we go. So here's the neck hole. I'm sorry if you hear the construction. Then I've knitted all of them except the 7 last ones here. Then you turn your work around. You have the thread on the front, or you put it there if you don't already have it. Then you slip 1 stitch like this. You bring this one over, so you create a double stitch here. You hold that one in place and then you knit the rest of the row. So I have a purl here. And then do as normal. So now you can see here's the double stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And also here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we do the same thing again. So you turn your work around. You'll have the thread on the front. You slip one stitch to the right. You bring the thread up over to create this double stitch like this. Hold it in place and you knit the rest of the row. So here we have a knit stitch and then a purl and then knit, purl. Purl. Then you turn it around for last time and you knit the whole row and then you can cast off. So I'm gonna use 3 needle cast off, but if you don't feel like learning that, you can just cast off as normal. It will just be like a little bit of a bulkier seam, but that's completely okay too. And also, like, if you don't want to do the German short rows, that's completely okay too. You can just continue decreasing until you have 21 stitches. Then you just stitch straight up for 3 rows, and then you cast off. And now I've come to the double stitch, and that one you just stitch together as if it was one. So here I have a purl, so this one's gonna be a knit. Here we have the other double stitch. Same thing here, this one is a knit, so this one's gonna be a purl. Knit it together. And there you go. So German short rows, so it's slanted a little bit. You don't see it so much because of the loose weave or loose knit. But yeah, now the front piece is done like this, and then you can start on the back. To do a 3-needle bind off, you put the needles parallel to each other, one holding the active stitches of the front shoulder and the other for the back. Use an additional needle, preferably a smaller size because it's easier. Do the same thing as if you were making a knit stitch, but go through the stitch of the back row in the same way as well. Grab the yarn and lead it through the 2 active stitches, one on the back and one on the front needle. When you have 2 stitches on the additional needle, do a bind off stitch. Then proceed doing the same thing over and over until all of the stitches are bound off. For the neck, you pick up stitches around the neckline, one for each stitch that you can make out. Should be around 56 stitches, but this depends on the size of your head. But just make sure it's an even amount for the ribbing, and you might need to try this out and then redo it if it's too tight, for example. Knit with a 4mm needle, 1x1 ribbing for 24 rows or 10 centimeters. And if it fits well, then you do a loose bind off. Fold it down inwards and stitch it with a yarn needle to the edge where you picked up the stitches. I think it's starting to look pretty good. I'm just trying with the sleeve. I think maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, or at least here I did a bind off that is pretty hard. And probably knit it from bottom up instead. But other than that, it seems to be laying pretty good. I might fix the shoulder so it's a little bit higher. But it doesn't seem to be like too bulky with a straight sleeve, so I might do that actually. Might save me a lot of struggles. But yeah. And also the neckline looks pretty good. Yeah. So here you can see that I made one sleeve to try it out, and I wanted to make it a little bit wider, so on the other side is the second sleeve, and I have just attached both of these temporary with very fast sloppy stitches, so it's easy to remove. I decided I was pretty happy with it, so you can just see me unravel it to finish it off properly and do a bind off. So I was going to make the sleeve. When I did the cast on the first time, I felt like it was very tight, and also very small, so it turned into a mini sweater instead. I think I might redo this with like a little bit smaller needle size because it's a little bit too chunky, and maybe skip the ribbing on the body because it looks not really the way I want it to, but it's very cute. So instead I did like a new cast on with 3 needles instead of 2. So that's what I'm gonna do for the other sleeve. So what you do is you leave a small end. I'm gonna leave a little bit more because I want to be able to fold it up and stitch it on the inside. So I'm gonna have more or less as what I had before, and a little bit more. Somewhere here maybe. For the sleeves, you cast on 34 stitches with the help of 3 needles instead of 2. I found that this was easier to make it a little bit looser so it's not too tight around your wrist. Then I transferred all the stitches to double pointed sock needles, but you could also knit on the round with a magic loop. It's whatever you prefer. Knit 18 rows or 7 centimeters. Then you will do increases 1 stitch for each stitch so that you double the amount of active stitches you have on your needles. Start knitting with a bigger sized needle, in this case 7mm. knit for 48 centimeters or 84 rows. And here I would just encourage you to attach the sleeve very sloppily to the arm side to see if the length is good, if it looks the way you want and it's a good length for your arm. Then you can assess if you need to frog, unravel some rows, or if you need to knit a few more to match your preferred length. Bind off very loosely and make sure it matches the width of your arm side. Then you line up the sleeve and the arm's eye with safety pins, so it's an even amount of fabric in between each. And then you will use an invisible stitch to stitch it together. Then the finishing touches is to weave in the ends and cut off excess yarn. And I see you. Don't wait and do this later, because there is no better time than doing it now. And it will feel really good to have a finished sweater. Believe me. Just do it now and you can thank me later. Fold the ribbing of the wrist inwards and stitch it down where the increases happened. Then you repeat all of these steps for the second sleeve. For the shoulder, I'm doing a crochet chain, and this is to stabilize the shoulder so it doesn't stretch out. And I'm picking up one stitch for every 2 stitches. And do the chain. And this you can try out different tension to see what you like. this is the finished result. I hope you liked this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!